Explain as simply as you can what sovereign citizens and pseudo-law actually are.
Yeah, so the language of sovereign citizen came from the United States, and it really is the origins are far-right militia movements, Christian identity groups, anti-Semitic, white supremacist organisations. It had migrated across the world from the global financial crisis through to the COVID pandemic, and now in Australia we have this ideology of pseudo-law, I suppose. That's a broader term for sovereign citizens. They're one subset within that larger group. Essentially, it's a group of people who say, I can pick and choose what laws apply to me. If I don't consent to a law passed by Parliament or a decision handed down by a judge, I don't need to follow it.
And what kind of impact do they have on our system? Obviously, you know, we're all obliged to respond to police if we're asked, you know, within obviously the boundaries of the law, the court system. What happens?
Significant impact. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a sharp rise in the number of people who say the law doesn't apply to me, I can do what I want to do. And talking to judges, magistrates, court officers around the country, they say that one or two of these people can ruin the day and can just spread everything out. It takes much longer to do everything else, but there's been a huge rise. It's not only courts, it's people in councils, local government, ombudsman, taxation officers, the births, deaths, marriages registry, anywhere where the state intersects with citizens. They've seen a sharp rise in the number of people who say, I don't want to follow this law. And just the impact, I suppose, is huge.
So how can we quantify just how big or significant it is?
It's really hard to do so. There's no clear number about the people who say they're a sovereign citizen or not. The language of sovereign citizen is disputed by many of these people because they say that it's a pejorative term and they don't want to be associated with it, because obviously the rest of us in society think these people are a bit silly and worse. And so they don't like that name. And so I guess pseudo-law is a broader term. But certainly data from police that I've seen, it suggests that there are a number of Australians, quite a few, who subscribe to this ideology or similar ideologies.
So how can we tackle it? Obviously, it's a form of radicalisation. There is obviously a case that's unfolding right now in Victoria, a manhunt which has made us all really focus on its potential dangers. Do you think there needs to be better policing when it comes to this? What do we need to do to tackle it?
Yeah, it's important to remember these aren't homogenous people, right? You've got some people who are true believers who may really fully ascribe to the ideology and live outside societal norms, perhaps like the individual in this case. You also have people who may be going through a particular personal crisis. Perhaps they've lost their job and they fear they're going to lose their home. They look online and they find some information that suggests if you use this one simple trick, you can avoid having to lose your house, you can avoid having to pay vehicle registration fees. And for whatever reason, they try it. They get sucked into that rabbit hole. I think the focus that we should have at the moment of responding to this are the people who make money out of it. So people who sell pseudo-legal schemes and sell sovereign citizen ideas online, in communities and online, they're making substantial money, substantial funds, and we should target them.
And is it inherently dangerous, this movement, because of the current story we've been covering, which is still unfolding and incredibly dangerous for the people in Port Punker? There is a view that this is quite dangerous. Is that always the case?
So it's not always the case. Again, we can't be too generic. I can't be too specific here. It's not always the case, but I do believe the ideology has an inherent risk of violence. It positions someone that says, I am the true upholder of the law. The law at one stage was good and just. It was corrupted, and now tyrannical state forces are coming here and destroying my individual liberty. So they position themselves essentially as martyrs against a larger state authority. And so I think at times when there's the risk of confrontation, they may, in what they see as self-defence in responding to a lawful issuing of a warrant by a police officer, they may respond in violent ways. That's certainly been the case in the United States.
And does there need to be better civic education for people to kind of ward off this growth of this movement?
So I should say as well, the sovereign citizen arguments and the pseudo-law arguments never work. They've never succeeded in any court decision in Australia or anywhere around the world. So I feel like the growth of it is not so much related to the idea that this will succeed in a battle against the police or a battle against a judge. The reason why I think why people are attracted to this ideology is an attempt to reclaim control and authority and power. And so in moments where crisis is happening, perhaps the pandemic, perhaps the GFC, this is a way for people to take back control. So I think legal education is important, but I think it's also about building communities, being empathetic, trying to support each other when we're going through difficult moments. Of course, you need to be careful if someone is violent. You need to be wary about that, obviously. But if someone starts to flirt with this ideology, it's important to try and reach out and support them and pull them back into some sort of rational thought.
Yeah, we've had a lot of politicians who've been talking about this today, as we've all asked them. It's pretty disturbing for those of us watching on, especially the violent nature of this particular case, of course. In terms of why we've seen the growth, you've talked about, you know, the US, the way that this has evolved in Australia. How pivotal was COVID? Because everyone keeps mentioning COVID as a sort of inflection point in this march towards this growing movement. Do you think it was pivotal here?
Absolutely was pivotal. Yeah, COVID was a big marker, I suppose, in the number of people who subscribe to this ideology or act on these beliefs. A sharp rise in the number of people who follow pseudolaw ideology. We all expected that it might dissipate after the pandemic has receded in view, but it appears that it hasn't. And talking to judicial officers around the country, like I have been doing as part of my research, they say that numbers have not reduced. They remain at elevated levels from pre-COVID. So this is something that is an enduring feature of our society, unfortunately, at this stage.
Dr. Hobbs, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.